Hello, I want to talk today about the last 20 years in psychology and pick up on some of Richard Gross's points. What Richard's quite rightly identified is that over the last 20 years, many of the most exciting changes in psychology have been biological. We have more or less new fields emerged in that time of evolutionary psychology, of epigenetics. Our understanding of neuroscience, the working of the nervous system, has increased out of all proportion. I don't think it's a surprise that these things have happened. In fact, I think it's exactly what the pioneers of psychology, 120, 150 years ago, would have expected to see at this point. Psychology grew out of biology, and one of the reasons psychology hasn't always been more biological is because we simply didn't have the technology until relatively recently to study the brain properly. Now that we do, I think it's a natural development, and I think it's great that psychology has in some ways gone down that road. However, I also want to say something about what's happened in the rest of psychology and to what extent we are becoming a more biological discipline. I think in some senses we have, and I think in many ways that's very healthy. But I wouldn't want to fall into the trap of thinking that psychology is now neuroscience or is biopsychology or psychobiology. There hasn't still been, and I think there always will be, other important aspects to psychology. I think we can illustrate this with an example of mental health. Neuroscience has taught us a lot about what's actually happening in the brain in different mental disorders. I also think genetics and epigenetics has taught us a lot and is rapidly teaching us more about the origins of some of those phenomena. More theoretical, but very interesting nonetheless, is evolutionary psychology, evolutionary explanations of mental disorder. But what I want to say is, we are not at the point, and I personally don't believe we ever will be at the point, where biological explanations and treatments will become all we ever need in mental health, or in any other area of psychology. We still need a social level of explanation to understand how mental illness can be socially constructed according to the historical period in which an understanding emerges. I think we will always need a cognitive and a behavioural level of explanation to understand people's experience of mental disorder, and we're going to need always treatments that are based in psychology, like cognitive behavioural therapy as an example, to tackle mental disorder. We're not, I don't think, at the point of actually giving up on those things, and I think there's a risk of over-egging the usefulness at the moment of the biological approach. Really, I just want to leave it there and just say, by all means, yes, it's absolutely true that the biological approaches have developed enormously, and that's very exciting. Let's not lose sight of the rest of psychology and how that is also a dynamic and expanding field. Thank you.